is this is also a new situation. We had a very large TV, 65-inch TV, but that ended up somehow getting damaged and not working. So to be able to show you these, we brought the projector in, and I'm going to turn that off. There we go. So all kinds of new stuff happening. Welcome, Wyoming. I'm assuming we're online now too. Welcome our online audience. Yes, greetings to all my fellow patriots, family, friends, and even the trolls, haters, and stalkers. If you guys hang around for a minute, you just might learn something. We're excited to be here in Wyoming. Back again. Anybody was at the Truth Tour event that was in Wyoming with the air show that we got? Yeah, pretty cool. Um, quick brief history about that is the Juan O'Savin was supposed to call in at that event and talk to the crowd, and he couldn't make it, so he asked Gina, who was okay, fine, that can stay there. Um, Gina had he asked Gina, what's your specific exact location? So she told him. She goes, well, he said, we'll be outside in about an hour. About an hour goes by, we hear this really crazy noise, and Brad Wansley is up on the stage giving his little presentation, and everybody just, screw Brad, we just ran outside. He's standing there. Where'd everybody go? But a couple of Huey helicopters came and buzzed the building. I mean, we're talking super low. A C-130 made a couple of passes, and a couple of, I don't know if they're F-16 fighter jets came and was just buzzed the building. And Juan had to set that up. I believe that. So I don't know who he is. A lot of people think JFK Jr., whatever. I don't know. I have no idea, but I know the guy's connected somehow or another to be able to call in an air show. And on top of that, those Air Force type, when they're flying those planes and stuff, there is very specific rules about the hard deck. That's the altitude that you're not supposed to go below, especially over residential neighborhoods. That guy was so low. I could see the tag on the guy's underwear. That's how low and how close these guys were. But good news and bad news. Good news is here in Wyoming. Bad news is Lewis isn't. So, in case you're wondering, Lewis had to jet out. We dropped him off at the airport today. He's going out to a undisclosed location at this point. There's going to be a huge press conference tomorrow that he's going to be involved in with some other people, exposing and bringing forward evidence. If you've been following, I'm not going to go into many details because I don't want to give the enemy any ammunition. But if you've been following, you kind of can pick up, read between the lines. You can pick up what I'm putting down. So there's going to be bringing forward evidence of a massive all kinds of stuff. So it's bringing it out on Front Street. A lot of the people that Lewis knows, influencers, other podcasters, people like Scott McKay and Jaco and those people, they're going to be live streaming that as well. So we're going to get that evidence out there tomorrow, noon Pacific. He said is their time frame, but you know how press conferences go. Trump's supposed to show up at 7. It's 8:30. He shows up. But anyway, so we're here. Unity. We're here about the Unity Tour. Anybody we talked about the Truth Tour events before, and before we get really going, can everybody do me a favor? Just kind of scoot up on the edge of your chairs, scoot up just a little bit and lean in a little bit, because Lewis is going to ask me, Bruce, how's it go? And I'm going to say, I had him on the edge of their seats from the very beginning. But we're having fun. We're traveling the country, doing 50 cities in 33 days, and bringing a message of unity, because we have to shift our mindset. I believe that's where I'm the mindset guy, to a long game. How many people here thought that this bizarro world shit show would have been over by now, or at least moving in a more positive direction in a public optic way? But we never thought that the inauguration would happen of like Jack Lander calls them, Joey Bribes. Him and Camel Toe. It's just it's nonsensical. That's, I mean, anybody with half a brain and one eye that really can't see that this is real. Uh, So anyway, never thought it would get this far, but here we are, nearly 4 years later. We got about a month to go or so, a little more than a month, then an alleged election or another selection. And I'll tell you straight from jump, um, the more that I think about it, the more my intuition tells me that they're going to steal it again. They're going to attempt to install camel toe and tampon Tim. That's there's tons of little markers. Um, the Biden administration and DHS, the Department of Human Smuggling, has designated January January 6, 2025, as a national special security event, which is essentially kind of is going to criminalize. They want to prevent us, we the people, from redressing our grievances against our government, right? So they're going to be criminalizing protesting on that day. Um, there's a couple other little markers that I've seen. It's very similar to 2020. You know, basement Biden didn't do much. Not a big draw. You know, camel toe is very similar. Took her almost until the first debate before they put any policy positions on her website. Everything is scripted. You know, they're paying people, bussing people in. They bring in these big name rappers for her these big name musical acts for her rallies. They see the musical act, and then everybody bails out when she goes and gets up there and starts talking about we need to be unburdened by what has become, or some bullshit. Her word salads. So the time is now for us to unite, right? We need to kind of muster the troops, close the ranks, kind of encourage people to do. Everybody can do a little bit more, I think. I don't know everybody's personal individual situation, what you're involved in, what you're doing. Being that you're here, it speaks volumes that you guys are leaders in that respect. Whether you view yourself as a leader or not, you are. And so the idea behind Unity and the Unity Tour is because after the Truth Tours were over, Lewis said, "I'm done. I'm not doing any more tours. We're going to do something different. We're not doing any more Truth Tours. So we're not doing any more Truth Tours, but we now get Unity Tour." But so God gave him a vision. Said, "Yep, you're going to do another tour." And he's like, "What? Really?" So he got blessing from God, gave the edict, and then he got blessing from Araceli, his wife. So you do it. He didn't ever thought that she would agree to to go ahead and do this. But the vision, the idea behind it is we need to unite behind, and God gave him the vision of 4 pillars. And over here on this graphic on the side, united to eliminate, and then unite up and down, New World Control. That entails United Nations, which is meeting this week to discuss all kinds of crazy, nefarious crap that they want to impose upon we the people. You can do some research, and they're meeting this week and talking about all kinds of crazy stuff to give them more power and us less rights. That's the bottom line. Illegal immigration. I mean, here in Wyoming, I know my son used to live near Laramie, and I know that in Wyoming that there are more cows than there are people. Right? There's a couple million cows and 600 some odd thousand people in Wyoming. Is that a true statement? Reasonably close. So, have you guys seen and experienced any of the illegal immigration stuff here? Yeah. In Colorado? Yeah. Right. Yeah, so she was saying that somebody local here was in the jail, a Venezuelan of a similar gang that was taking over the apartment buildings in Aurora, Colorado, was here in jail locally, and they waiting for ICE to come get them. They probably just pick them up and take them off to another county and drop them off. Then once they're done being used up from the physical aspect, then their organs are harvested. So that's truth. And it's a slap upside the head. We don't, like I said, it's so dark that we really don't. It's hard for us to really think, because I think at our cores we want to think that generally people are good, but there is some really bad, nasty, evil shit in this world. Then that's what we're fighting against. That's why it's so important. I believe we're on a mission from God, right? We're unity. As I was studying up, preparing for this tour, unity is a divine concept. Every single organized religion has a tenet or a aspect of unity and power and unity within those religions. I'm not a fan of religion at all, especially the 501c3 corporate church, the corporate thing they call the church here in America. But and then even philosophy, of the different ideas or philosophical ideologies, they all have a unity aspect in them, and there's massive power in unity. When you're by yourself, you know, you're by yourself. But I think the Bible talks about a 3-1. I don't know how it goes. The 3-1 cord is not easily broken. When we link arms together, in power and purpose, there's nothing that can stop us. We are unstoppable. And then on top of that, when we align with the divine, right? Who could ask for a better partner, right? Because as far as I know, anybody has any want to fact check me on this? Light is undefeated against darkness. Everywhere there's darkness, wherever light shows up, poof, darkness is gone. So we are the light. We need more people. We need to unite and put away some of the little idiosyncrasy or little backbiting, little fighting, arguing, divisiveness is just as example. I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen a lot of that following a lot of different truthers in the truther community. There's this backbiting, don't listen to that guy. He's controlled opposition. He's a CIA asset. This guy as conservative, sovereign, free thinkers is we want to be our own independent thing. And we don't want to be, it's not a group think cult type of thing where we're just everybody believing the same thing. And it's all, there's a lot of people think that way. I mean, there's people that put Trump up on a pedestal, and that's wrong. He's just a guy. He's doing a good job. But if he never comes back in the White House, it doesn't matter. I still know what my fight and my purpose is, right? I liken Trump to Toto in The Wizard of Oz. When they went into the Emerald City, Toto's the one that pulled the curtain back, and you see the little guy back there pulling all the levers. That's what Trump has done to the
dividing amongst ourselves instead of uniting as we the people. You look at it during Yeshua's time. And during Yeshua's time, he was going through the same thing we're going through right now. He had a number of disciples, a number of followers, and they were fighting the evil, the Pharisees. Um, and it was him trying to unite the people. Thank you. Okay. All right. All right. It was he that was trying to unite the people to get them to work together and to see the good in everything, not to look at the evil that was around them. I mean, when Jesus went into the temple and started throwing away the tables and the money changers, he wasn't being very nice. And it's at this point that we've got to start stepping up as well. We can't just take it lying down. We have the other side, the woke side. They have no problem yelling at us, walking away from us when we question them to give us some merit to what they're saying. They'll yell. But what do? We're the nice guys. We take it. Well, it's time to stop taking it because they're just going to continue to walk all over us if we allow them to do so. You're all here because you're all like minded. And one thing Bruce said about being star seeds, according to Dolores Cannon, has anybody heard of Dolores Cannon? We're all star seeds or we wouldn't be here. Okay, so we're all from the galactics and planet, and we're here for a purpose. We chose to be here. Now, a lot of those that are woke may not have been chosen to be here. They just happen to be here. We've got a lot of NPCs, non-player. Okay, you're all aware. Okay. Are you one? No. Well, you can see them when they're walking up to you, or you can feel them. Or I don't know. I can feel them when they come into close proximity, and they just have a blank stare. Not Lewis, Bruce asked me to relate one of the stories that I recently encountered. I went to the bank Wednesday, and the teller there, she's going through a divorce, and she was looking for some assisted living housing. She's also Peruvian, so they automatically thought she was an illegal immigrant. So for the housing, she went through all of the spiel and then started filling out the paperwork. Well, she has recently become a U.S. citizen, and and up to the point that she told him she's a U.S. citizen and that she lives here and she has a nice job, they were willing to put her into this affordable housing projects, whatever you want to call it. As soon as she let them know that she was a citizen, they told her she's not qualified. So this is what the game that they're playing right now. And then you see with Nepad Harris that she wants to give 25% or $25,000 for any first time buyer. But what the woke side doesn't see is that first time buyer has to be an illegal immigrant. It's not for your child or my child that wants to buy a home for the first time. Now, on a nicer note, I tend to wear a lot of this type of clothing, something that makes a statement. And I recently went into the restaurant and I had the Fight, Fight, Fight t shirt on. And a number of the young people that were working in the service industry came up to me and said, "Thank you." And the one guy that I was talking to, and I asked, "How old are you?" He said, "I'm 38 years old. I've been with my fiance for 5 years. We want to get married. I'm still living at home because I can't afford to buy a house." And so that they're becoming aware. But what I'm seeing, it's more of the young people that are becoming aware as opposed to our age group and above. At that same restaurant, there was a couple at the table adjacent to ours, and they kept looking, and I could tell that they were not complimentary reactions. So I went over to them and I tried to initiate a conversation, and the guy just goes like this. And he was my age, he was not one of the younger ones. So, like I said, it is encouraging that the younger ones are starting to wake up. Now, I do have a particular affinity for what the children are going through. I'm a former educator, entrepreneur, and I taught in high school. And one incident was for the math tests. I taught calculus and advanced math. I told the kids, you've got to take the test and you've got to do it this way for the test. I says, once the test is over, I'll show you a shortcut. But this is what our education system has become. It's become an indoctrination system for the deep state. It's probably one of the main institutions that are the most corrupt of all of them. You know, you figure it out. Now kids are going preschool. It used to be when I started school, it was kindergarten through college. Now you've got the kids going from preschool and then they graduate from high school. Then they go to the university. Now they're going to become a teacher. They've never left the system. They have no life experiences. All they know is what they've been told. And it's unfortunate. I saw the latter years when I was teaching in high school in the English classes, they used to have creative writing. That means you have to use your mind and start thinking and make up stuff. They eliminated that. There is no creative writing anymore. The one pet peeve I always had, I'd ask kids, come on, give me some. They are so, what they are is they're in prison for 8 hours a day. They're told what to do, to think, and to shut up and mind your own business and just do what we tell you. I used to tell the kids, read. When you're done reading, read some more. When you're done reading some more, read some more and question everything. and look at all sides. We need the critical thinking back. If we go and look at little children, you have a little 3, 4, 5 year old. If you can recall when you were kids, I can. I look forward to seeing those days again. Um, did you have any differences with anybody? All you wanted to do is go out and play and climb trees, look at the flowers. I remember when my son was so proud of himself, he went and picked me a bouquet of yellow flowers, dandelions. And that was great. And the buttercups, we'd put them under our chins. But kids aren't doing that anymore. Now they're not allowed to do it because the parents are hovering over. I don't know about you, but I never had full knees on my pants. My my knees were all scabbed all the time. Now you never see kids with ripped pants unless it's they buy them that way because it's fashionable. But you don't see the kids having that opportunity to go and climb a tree and to fall out of the tree. Maybe get a concussion. Maybe it knocks some sense into them. Maybe it doesn't. But they get up and do it again. And we need to have that type of activity with the kids. But they need to see everything. The other thing I tell everybody, and I used to tell my kids, you have your opinion. I have my opinion. They may be complete opposing opinions. But how am I going to know what you're thinking? And how are you going to know what I'm thinking if we don't discuss it and look at the other side? So, in order to move forward and to come up with solutions, you need to see all aspects of all backgrounds and all opinions and all thinking. Use the Socratic method of thinking instead of the rote, indoctrinated type of thinking. And if we look back at the indigenous cultures, and I don't know if any of you have heard of Huna Flash. Okay, so I'm a Huna with him. I've done a lot of work with him, a lot of ceremonial work. And the one thing about Huna, Huna means one of the many, many of the one. And that goes right back to we the people united. Because we are all one. We're all brothers and sisters. God created us, and He created us in His image for us to create as well. That's why we need to start focusing our thoughts on what we would like to see versus what is negative and what is. It's already here. We can't do anything about what is here, but what can we do to change what's here as we move forward? And we need to start looking at one another as brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers. We're all one. You know, I was doing a podcast with Nick Sylvester, and this is about a year ago. And it was funny because I don't even know what we were talking about at the time, but we came up with a thought, and all of a sudden we hear Jaco saying the exact same thing. We see Carrie Cassidy saying the same thing. We saw Lewis saying the same thing. That's how great the collective consciousness is. And when I say we're all connected, that means the trees were the first antennas. So whatever we put out there, it's going to get picked up. And we need to really concentrate on what we want to see in a positive fashion. Again, the deep state, they control us with fear. They control us with anger, with jealousy. Those are all negative emotions that we do not need. We need to channel that and put it into positive creation because our thoughts do become reality. So whatever we're thinking will manifest itself. So it's best if we manifest, if all of us come together and say the same thing and manifest going forward. And as I mentioned, in the indigenous communities, if you go back, way, way back, and talk about dark stuff that maybe Bruce is not willing to accept, Ponce de Leon, he was searching for the fountain of youth. What was the fountain of youth? Any, that's worldwide, not just in the US. But what's going on in the border right now? The majority of those children are coming across the border where parents in good faith gave them to somebody to take to their family in the United States. They never get there. They have little wristbands on them, and the wristbands denote how much they're worth. The younger they are, the more they're worth. Planned Parenthood with their abortions. And now the biggest fallback I get from the woke side, why they don't like Trump is because Roe versus Wade went back to the state. They don't look at it that way. They just say he stopped abortion. But in some states, you can parenthood. If the infant, the fetus, was taken where it was 16 weeks or older, they usually took the fetus live and then they sold it on the black market. People need to become more aware of this, and it's up to us to make people aware. And we shouldn't be telling them. We should be asking, are you aware of this? And go and look for the answer with that. In the indigenous communities, in the tribal way, you had everybody living together as one. So this whole community here, we're looking out for one another. If I had something and you didn't have something, I'm going to share it with you. If you had something that I didn't have, you're going to share it with me. If I needed help doing something, you're going to help me. And they all looked after all of the children together. Then they taught them how to use the plants because the plants, our Creator provided everything we could possibly need. We don't need the pharmacology, all this black magic. Everything has been provided to us, and an abundance has been provided to us. And that's what our Creator wants us to have, is to live in abundance. And we have to realize, no, we have to know that we are deserving of this abundance and of this Garden of Eden. So all I can ask of all of you is really, as you go forward, really pay attention to what you're thinking and put out positive thoughts and put out what you really would like to see versus what's going on right now. Because we can change it. And there's really nothing to be fearful of because together we can move forward and we can change. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
Break it up a little bit on what you've seen to do together because this is a lot, first of all. We've taken time to get all this information. You're not going to walk up to anybody and ask them anything because they're not going to A, listen. They might run away.
For the audience back at home, if you could just make one sentence to summarize that question, because yeah, that was a good practice run. Go ahead and hit the audience at home with the question that you wanted to address.
I was on my
So
train
it
of
sounded
thought.
like action steps.
Yeah, I just wanted you to Bruce talked about and give us little chunks of what we can do because we've been to a lot of meetings and people are not coming together anymore and they're local meetings, just like everybody was saying. We're not getting anywhere. And it seems weird that we have all this internet and all these communication platforms and voices as we're in the grocery store and out with our kids, and yet nobody wants to come together. And so to me, it's like history's repeating.
History is repeating
Yeah.
itself. There's no doubt about it. And we are very apathetic at this time. Many people, because of all of the hopium, have faltered off and left. However, if you talk to just one person and get them to think, ask a question, why? What do you want? Why do you think this? Let them think about it. And Bruce is going to highlight some of the things that Lewis has put together for us to do as a community. People are listening. Like I said, I've been noticing when I walk into the grocery store where people would, if I had this hat on, they would ignore me and give me a dirty look. Now all of a sudden people are starting to come up to me and I do engage. I talk a lot. So so I do engage them, and I engage people that don't want to hear from me as well. And then they end up walking away, and that's okay too. But at least I've got them thinking about something. So okay, and to your point, in my community in Steamboat, we have so many openings for PCPs, we can't get them. But we're still showing up. We went to a school board meeting a year ago where we had two really qualified candidates. And a number of us spoke. There were more of us speaking than on the other side, the woke side. And the board president at the time said, well, you know, this we would have to do too much training to have one of you two come, although we appreciate you showing up. We're going to stick with this person because we know what they're thinking. So, to your point, that is going on, but we keep showing up and we keep trying to, make a little bit of a change. And like I said, Bruce is going to address the remainder of your question. As soon,
That a lot of people, I believe, are experiencing like the fog of war because of maybe some misinterpretation of some of the Q stuff, and putting that this was going to happen a lot quicker. January 20th, when Joey Bribes was being inaugurated, we expected a whole bunch of arrests to happen. All the in orange jumpsuits and handcuffs walking down the Capitol. That's what kind of the expectation, right? That a lot of people had, and that just really wasn't reality. We've heard, the talk about eating your popcorn. Enjoy the movie, eat the popcorn. That kind of takes away that, hey, you don't have to do anything, that somebody else is going to do it, that you just get to reap the benefits. And that was, I don't think, in Lewis talk, Lewis and I have this discussion all the time. I don't think it was a nefarious type of thing. It was maybe just some ignorance because nobody's been in this type of situation before. And so, we know now who our enemy is, what their playbook is, and what kind of some steps that we can take to start to counteract their moving. So there's the fog of war situation, the apathy. There's not enough pain, right? Q talks about until you get to the precipice of destruction, that you're not going to change, and that precipice is different for each individual person, right? Some people reached it a little earlier than others. Until it really affects your pocketbook. I like the saying too, along that same line, until the pain of where you're at in your life is greater than the pain of change, then you're not going to change, because you're going to experience pain one way or another. So you might as well go through the process, embrace the grind, right? And embrace the suck, and go through and do the work, and make that, get through that pain so you can get to the other side, right? Because once that change comes, the pain is a lot less. So different people experience pain at different places. And so I believe, my viewpoint, unpopular as it might be, is that the next wave of people to get out of their apathetic mindset is going to be the financial collapse. And that's another one of the markers that I kind of looked at. We know that our entire financial system is a house of cards waiting to come down. And it can't happen. That financial collapse cannot happen, I don't believe, underneath a Trump administration, right? So it has to happen underneath these guys. So that's another little marker that says, hey, the financial collapse happened yet. So that's why they're going to, try to install Camel Toe and Tampon Tim for that to happen. This is all just supposition, right? Nobody's been in this, situation before. But we're the ones that hold all the power, and we can continue, right? Whether it's fruitful or not, we continue. Whether it's whether it's convenient or not, we continue. We show up and do the work. 80% of the deal is just showing up, right? And you continue to push. It seems like you're beating your head against the wall, but you got to trust in your creator that we're on the right path. And it might take a little bit longer for some people than others, but we cannot give up. That's the only way we lose, is by by giving up and saying, fork it, I'm done. Curl up in a fetal position until it's all over. Those are our options. I would rather be out there fighting and give everything, and say, when my kids who knows what's going to happen 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now. Those people that were fighting against this stuff, we're going to be talked about, right? So we got to, this is way bigger than one individual. And so that's what I love about what Lewis has done. He's got a uncanny ability to bring this, to codify all these different little craziness into an action plan that we can use. And we're going to talk about the freedom in action before we end up here tonight. Those are tools and tips and tricks and things that we can use to be able to facilitate either, facilitate taking back your local community, right? Because I'm to the point where I don't even matter if I run a red pill people. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still, right? Some Q said the end isn't for everybody. If we just continue to be the best people we can be, to be the happiest, man, just like the CNN reporter saying there, it's a mostly peaceful protest and the shit's burning like crazy behind him. We have to live that life. When everything around us seems to be crashing and burning, and we got a happy, positive growth mindset type of attitude, and people look at us like, how can you be so happy with what's going on? And then that opens the door. You can, share some stuff. And when Lewis talks about truth barfing and all that different type of stuff, but the key is, questions, asking people questions, getting them to acknowledge, because they will, even if they lie to your face, they will answer the question honestly in their head. Lewis, that's a psychological thing that happens. They'll tell you that, Joe Biden, he's dumb as a box of rocks, and he ain't been home. The lights are on, but the elevator don't go all the way to the top. That's what's inside their head. But they're telling you, he's great. Bidenomics is working. So hopefully that answered and helped out a little bit. Good. All right.
I just wanted to iterate one thing that Bruce said, and that is, we are powerful. We were created that way. There's nothing we can't do. We just have to know that we can do it and go out and do it. And like I said, create what you want, not the negative that they want us. And now I'm done.
Lots of love for Michelle. I'm going to have the next person come up, the newest member of our team for touring, Andrew. He was, he drew the short straw, and he got selected. He's been bucking to get on the Truth Tour for a couple of years now. But anyway, it was because of Kevin. Anybody know Kevin, the buzzer guy from Las Vegas? He was on the Truth Tours and helping out, driving, all kind of stuff. Well, he was going to be the third, Lewis, myself, and Kevin, but he ended up needing some pretty significant abdominal surgery, like 3-4 weeks before we were supposed to start. So it was just not feasible for him to come along. It's a grueling thing, doing an event, pack everything up, haul ass to the next place, and do it on 50. Lewis, he's keeping pushing the limit. First it was like 17 cities, and then it was like 26, and now he's up to 50 cities in 33 days. I hope it's over. So I don't know how much more I can take. But Andrew, he's been stepped up. He's driving. He's doing everything, running the camera, some of the tech stuff, doing a fantastic job. So give it up for Andrew.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that warm welcome. And what an honor it is. This is my first time. We're in Wyoming, right? Did I pronounce it correctly? I want to make sure I didn't get that wrong, because the fastest way to lose an audience is to say the name of the state wrong. So I'm from Ohio. Our state is a greeting in itself. And so coming from the heart of America, and I had to run out to the RV and put my boots on because, it makes me look taller, more handsome, a little bit more bravado. It's amazing. I've never owned boots until, so there's this guy named Juan. Juan only allows you to take pictures of his boots. I think he's modeling for some boot company out there that we've never heard of before. So they're going to be world famous once we figure out who that guy is. So anyways, I did get him to autograph this one in black and then this one in silver. And so, but going back, we're starting back as children, right? That's what the the common motivation of what we're doing is that we would leave something better for the next generation than what we've inherited. Are we in agreement on that? So we're 100% in agreement that we want to make lives better for the next generation. Cool. You know, so when I was growing up as a kid, Ohio and then Michigan, my grandfather came from what was Yugoslavia to the United States, and then eventually to Chicago and then to Detroit to work in the auto industry. And he worked for 35 years at Chrysler. My mom's dad was that the other side of the family was it goes back, I think, 16 generations in America. But the name is so common on that side, I lost all track of who my ancestors. But my so there's the common theme of the auto industry. One side was blue collar and the other side was white collar. My dad got an education. He went the white collar path. But something happened when I was probably about 11 or 12 years old. My dad's contract actually got bought out. So we go from that generation of the grandpa generation that they work 35 and 42 and a half years for one of the big three. And then my dad's contract gets bought out and I'm a little kid and I'm like crying. My dad, my mom, my sister and I are trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do next? Like, what does that mean? We don't know what that means. Like, dad's always worked for this one bow tie company, and so obviously he found work with one of the other suppliers, or eventually the other two big three automakers. But for me, I'm like, wait a minute. As a child, I realized I cannot put my trust into a corporation that is growing. Most people don't realize that 2 out of 3 of the automakers went bankrupt. One of the other ones said, "Hey, we got our own cash. We don't need the government money not as much as the other two." So in any case, I knew that corporations were sketchy even as a teenager, and then I become a travel agent. I became a cruise specialist because auto industry was fun, but helping people spend money on vacations. Man, what a fun job that was. People are calling up and it's like, "Hey, we want to go on a Caribbean cruise," and I love that. I love planes, I love trains, I love ships. I absolutely love that. And so um and it was real simple, because guess what? You talk to a husband and wife, "Oh, our kids want to go. Our neighbors want to go." It's like, if you do a good job and you're confident and you know what you're talking about, it is so easy. I bring up the word confident, and with the young lady saying there that how do we get people to move? And Bruce brought up a great point. If it's not the children, okay, so we got some hard-headed, hard-hearted, or tunnel vision, or numb. Maybe the key word, the 4-letter word, is numb. People have been desensitized. We go from, we look at these pictures. I mean, I'm looking at these men, these cowboys, the men and women that laid good with a paper hole puncher. I don't use some of the words that other people. I call it a paper hole puncher because that's all I've done is put holes in paper from a long ways away. Well, except for that grenade launcher. So in the military, I'm going through my experience here real quick, but like in the military, uh, you know, one of the things, I was a Navy CB, a heavy equipment operator. We did construction. So I signed up for an 8-year enlistment. Uh, uh, so if anybody at home hears that beep, Bruce, your laundry is dry. You may go to the dryer. So we want to let you know what life is like on the road. So my laundry got dry in one cycle. Bruce, he's got some more clothes, so it took him 2 cycles. In any case, we've only traveled, I looked it up, 6,000 and about 100 miles, because between Waze and maps, I think we did some extra turns in there. And Esther doesn't like slowing down. If you understand Esther the RV, I don't know how many thousand pounds. You never talk about a woman's weight. and you always talk about how young she is. There are always either 21 or 29, but I don't know how old Esther is, and I don't know how much she weighs. But when she sees a stop sign or a red light, she's thinking about it, and it's like maybe. So, um, Lord, please protect us everywhere we go, and obviously that's important that we drive safely, and we are. Bruce is an incredible road warrior. It's funny too because. I'm obviously taking a wide loop around, but I want to, you know, coming back around, I was hitting on the word confidence. I'm confident in Bruce's driving ability, you know, and, you know, Lewis has put some trust in me that, that when Lewis is gone, Bruce and I can run a production and, obviously with Michelle and everything, but I want to let you know that from my experience as a travel agent, I was put out of work after 9/11. 10 days later, I was out of work. Auto industry, when the global financial crisis hit, I was out of work or had a hard time finding I've never had a six-figure job, you know. And then in 2020, the lockdowns happened. I'm a rideshare driver in South Florida, and I'm going from making 100 to $250 a day to nothing. It was like $4 a day, and I was just cut off because there's no more rides. But my military experience told me that big canister mask that I've worn in a gas chamber that works perfectly good, I take that thing off, and it's like I find muscles in my neck that I never knew that I had. And so, the there's a mask mandate that's rolled out in Broward County, Florida. I'm in Palm Beach County, Florida, and some nurse in Broward County, she sends out a lift request. That it is raining cats and dogs. There's like 4 inches of flooding, but the warrior inside of me says there's one more person that needs to get home. So I'm gonna go pick her up. So we pick her up, and then she's also got her son with her, and then she's like, "Oh, hey, can we grab carry out on the way?" Sure. All right. Let's go grab carryout. All right. So then, she gets back in the car, and then she wants to proceed to argue with me. And I'm trained in chemical biological. I'm not an expert, but I've been in a gas chamber more than once. I kind of know what works and what doesn't work. In any case, uh, we're driving down the freeway now. The sun's coming out. There's like a rainbow, and she wants to roll down the window and let the thunderstorm into the car. And so I'm like, what kind of crazy is this? In any case, the ride ends. I go back home, and the next day I want to go back to work, and guess what? Permanently deactivated. This lady rode a nasty. I went out in a thunderstorm, picked her and her kid up, got her to dinner, and then took her to home. Everything was perfectly safe, but because I wasn't wearing a mask, I got permanently deactivated. So when we talk about the new world control, anybody have a cell phone in this room? Anybody use it for banking? Anybody use it for communication? Anybody use it for ID? You realize that what they were doing over in Asia through the technology companies that we have here in America, it only takes one instance to go from green light to red light. And guess what happened with that rideshare company? I went from green light to red light. So if you haven't realized, it's here. It's now. It's like talking about what would motivate people. Well, do you think I'm motivated after 3 times in my life being put out of work? You think I'm motivated after serving 8 years in the military? So going back to 2002, I shook hands with George W. Bush. He came to the university that I took some classes at. And I was convinced by the way he shook my hand that we were doing the right thing. So I'm like, 2006, I'm going to choose my job in the military rather than have it chosen for me. And I said, hey, what do you need most? And they said, we need CBs. I said, okay, great. What's that? They do construction. What's available? Oh, we have equipment operator. Even better. So, don't tell anybody I had a good time, because I really did. They gave me the most amazing truck on the planet. Anybody in the trucks here, like 4-wheel drive? So they gave me the most amazing truck on the planet, unlimited fuel, and a mechanic. And then about 40 Australian soldiers to be fully armed to watch out for me while I did construction with the team of 22 people that I was working with. So it was amazing. But so confidence. We could put our confidence in our digital devices. We could put it in my military training. I could put my confidence in anything that I choose. But we need to be confident in the fact that we are connected to an almighty. We know that we're in a spiritual battle. Every time that God had people engage in a spiritual battle, didn't they win? I mean, his winning streak is pretty fantastic. Now, there's some that laid down their lives, but guess what? Did they not win? Because this is temporary. This is temporary. My spirit will live on forever. Your spirit, your spirit, your spirit, your spirit, your spirit will live on forever. So even if we lose this temporary body or being that we're in, we have an opportunity. The question is, are we going to pass on the faith? Like, for example, my mom just passed away right before I left for this tour. She passed on her faith to me. If she gave me one gift, it was her faith. So what can I pass on to the next generation? I haven't had children yet, you know, and I'm guessing most of you have already had some children and maybe even grandchildren, right? If you pass on one thing to the next generation, let it be that. Because obviously, if we, in this room, we don't have a TV. Most of the rooms, they offer us a TV. What are they offering us through, anybody remember 3 channels? And if the president was on, he was on all 3 channels. I'm not quite that old. I've heard that joke, and I'm stealing it from somebody and giving no royalty, no credit. So, I remember 13 channels or so. I remember black and white TV that I inherited from my parents as their first TV, and I would crank that thing around, try to get it dialed in just so I could get a half signal to watch Monday Night Football way past my bedtime. But most of the time, they're offering fear and scarcity and limited time and this and that. And, oh, we got a breaking alert. We've got this disaster and that disaster. So they are literally working 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to fill us full of fear. So, over here, if we haven't eliminated our fear, and fear just takes action. The first time it's always going to be scary. The first time it's always, nobody's an expert on their first try. I'm working on my dancing. Anybody like dancing in here? There's 2-step, there's swing, there's salsa, there's ballroom, there's this. It's like, I'm maybe the worst dancer out there, but I'm putting myself in a place where I'm getting outside my comfort zone. Hopefully I can get my brain and my body to find the beat and the rhythm. So whatever damage that's been done to me growing up as a kid by the becoming numb or becoming desensitized or whatever trauma that I've experienced, so I'm choosing to be brave to go out there. And if I make a fool of myself, I make a fool out of myself, but I'm not going to be trapped by that fear. Now, Michelle rides motorcycles. I haven't gotten that brave yet. Anybody ride motorcycles? I've got a special respect for people that ride motorcycles because they have to be aware. Your level of awareness is probably 10 times that of anybody else on the road because you need to have a level of awareness of those that are unaware. So, God bless you. I pray that the Lord's angels will protect you everywhere you go. And maybe someday I'll get enough courage to get my own motorcycle and join you. So if we're assured victory, if we've cast off our fear, if we've been filled with faith, we've grown our confidence that we are already victorious, how do we march forward? And so a lot of it's going to be setting aside our ego. And, boy, we've been traveling now for I've lost count. We're up to about 20 days, 21 days of traveling. And some days go really great. And some days I have an ego meltdown or I have a spiritual meltdown. Life's not easy. And so, but we can hit the reset button at any moment. We can hit the reset button at any moment. We can go to a quiet place. We can figure out because a lot of times it's a wound that's coming to the surface. When we have a malfunction or a meltdown or something's not working or we have a conflict with somebody, it may be somebody that hurt us that we can't even remember. And then the person in front of us may resemble, or the situation may bring something back to the surface. Has anybody been born into the Garden of Eden? Anybody here that happened to, is there a Adam? Is there an Eve here? It's like, so, okay, outside of the Garden of Eden, everything else is a war zone. And so we've all grown up in a war zone, just like when I was over in Afghanistan, seeing these children that grew up in a war zone. War may look different. In some areas, it may be kinetic, which means we're the same after that situation. And then all of a sudden, I'm not paying attention in school. I went from all A's to alphabet soup. And so the teacher's trying to figure out what's going on with me, and she can't. My mom's trying to figure out what's going on with me, and she can't. They sent me to the doctors, and I got really high scores. They're like, hey, this kid's really intelligent. What's going on? And they're like, okay, we don't see any issue. Evil had come into my life, and I had been exposed to things that were of perversion. It's like one of my favorite movies is Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin, and he's going through his brother's things, and he happens to pull out one of those bunny magazines, and he looks at it, and he's like, no clothes on these people, sickening. Well, yeah, that's the reaction that we should, it's like, well, why? Because we have guilt and shame because we're carrying around, in any case, everybody's clothed in here. That's the socially acceptable. It's like in South Florida, it's like, is this part of my therapy when I live down in South Florida and people are wearing almost nothing? So in any case, how do we return to innocence? And that innocent child that I saw in Afghanistan, there's a 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. There's one of every age. They're obviously not watching TV. They're making families bigger. Maybe they watch a little TV, but they're more concerned about farming, agriculture, making their crafts, and having a larger family. And so, in any case, the smallest one, and the only thing I ever learned to say in Pashtun was "Marabani los ma," please do not touch. And I said it to this little girl, and she's reaching out. She touches the barbed wire, and I said "Marabani los ma," and she says, "Please do not touch." And then she touches my hand, and a shockwave of innocence goes up and smashes my heart. And I'm like, what was that? And I take a step back because I'm like, I can't do construction at this moment because a life-changing experience has just happened and I have no idea what that was. I pray and meditate about it over the next 2 days as I'm going about my business. And the message that I got back was, that's how innocent I see you. That we are the innocent little child that grew up in a war zone, or as Juan puts it, the kid by the side of the road. We are all in on this. We've all experienced trauma. We've all experienced evil. But on our watch, we're not going to stand for it. If we have a way to stand in the gap, if we have a way to pray, if we have a way to take action. And what do those actions look like? Well, for me, when I found out that there was something going on, so I started doing my research in March of 2020, and I asked question after question after question after question after question. I almost went bonkers trying to do all my research. And then I meet the Google whistleblower, so I work with him. And I find out that Google had been censoring in the blacklist file. So any product that you use that's Google, they're going to give you 4 + 5 = 10. Or that maybe this side of the room, they're going to give you 5 + 4 = 10. You both have bad math, right? Okay, fight. And everybody wonders why everybody's fighting in America and around the world. It's as simple as that. The big tech companies are hiding the best answers, and they're giving you bad math. So how are we going to solve this? Real simple. We'll go back to the truth. 5 + 5 = 10. We will get off of the emotion. Anybody that's trapped in emotion right now, if you want to overcome your fear, or you want to overcome an emotion that's overwhelming, just do a very simple math problem. 6 + 4 = 10. 7 + 3 = 10. It will help get over to the logical side of our brain. So if we realize that every single person in this room has an experience, we all have gifts and talents. Now, guess what? Going back to what Michelle was saying, if we're told to sit in a classroom, not ask any questions, and go get a job, well, guess what? That may work for the corporations, but eventually it does not work for us. And it's failing faster for each generation. Actually, the youngest generation is becoming more entrepreneurial. But at the same time, they're becoming more entrepreneurial. As soon as you say or do something that you're not allowed to do, like talk about the KM. Does anybody know what the KM is? This lady knows what the KM is. So get her phone number. She knows exactly what she's talking about. So, but that's the fastest way to get in trouble on Facebook, is just to mention that. And there's about a half dozen topics that we've already talked about that are we couldn't have this conversation online. So now all the censorship that I faced, sometimes our challenge becomes a blessing. So it's like I went to the gym and I learned how to have conversations with people. Hi, my name is. And then as a rideshare driver, it looks like we're going to, in this case, we're at the Little America Resort. Oh, is that your destination? Yes, that's my destination. Is there anything exciting going on? It's that simple. An open-ended question where you give them the opportunity to talk. And as I learned in communications class, 55% of communication is listening. And I struggle with this, where I want to talk and I need to just be quiet and listen. And so, but I got really good at asking questions. At first I was doing that, hey, have you heard about that? I was like, blah, 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 blah. I was going off and off and off about all these different things, and they were not relevant. Guess what? Does anybody have an invisible force field that when you come across somebody that's just blowing out smoke, that you just kind of put up your invisible force field, or you just let it go in one ear and out the other? We all have that. We all have that capability of being present and ignoring somebody else. We can look them in the eye and completely ignore them. So how do we engage? We have to realize that the person that is in front of us is more important than ourselves. That what they have to say, even if a bunch of it is just hot air, there may be one puzzle piece in there that helps us finish. Let's say we got a part where we're stuck. Anybody ever been stuck on a jigsaw puzzle? And it's like, where's that one piece? Oh, it's under the table. And they help you find that, and then all of a sudden you unlock that, and now all of a sudden you unlock about 50 other pieces. We're all in this together. And what it is being able to have those communications and adding value to the other people. Guess what? If they don't know, if they don't have a connection with the Almighty, their value is what the World Economic Forum is going to tell them, is that they are a useless eater. I don't know. I see unique people that have unique fingerprints and have. Did you know that our heartbeat is even more unique than our fingerprint? And so, either we're robots, or we are destined for great things. We all have creative abilities. Now, this is way out there, but I started doing a search on spiritual densities. So third is like guilt and shame, and then you start getting up to the emotions, and then you find love, peace, and joy, and then you find enlightenment, and that's like the fifth density. But then there's like another 10 past that. I was trying to do my research, and I found out, wait a minute, there's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then I was like, I was like, wait a minute, is that it? And then I happened to see another, Ishmael Perez. He said, hey, there's 12, 13, 14, 15. Well, in 15, you get to create your own universe. So how considerate do you need to be of others if you are going to create your own universe? It's like for example, Bruce was talking about this reservation. I didn't have a conversation number. We were traveling so fast, getting everything ready. I didn't have a confirmation number for this place. Thankfully, we were able to get here early because it was a shorter drive, and thankfully the hotel was able to get us into this room. And thankfully, Bruce worked his tail off. He looked at me like, really? But I said, hey, can you put the Starlink up? And he's like, okay, because it's not easy. Like, he's got to run around like a madman. He's got to get the power going right. He's got to get the trajectory right. We got to lasso. It's like, we lassoed a satellite. We got signal. Woohoo! Oh, thank God we can broadcast, and we got it going by 6 p.m. And so, like, the number of miracles that have happened, every person that has been born and has made it into attendance today, everybody that's watching online is a miracle. Just to get this broadcast going, we probably had 5 to 7 miracles happen. So when the lady was saying that, well, how do we get people to join up? You get in love and peace and victory and enlightenment. You shine your light so bright that when you walk into a dark place, they're going to be like, whoa, you're too bright for me, or I want some of that. If we don't have anything to offer, if we're not overflowing with love, well, we need to tap into our source of love and get filled up. If we're not overflowing with faith, we need to tap into our source and get filled up. So and a lot of people talk about Q. Was Q actually the source of information, or the source of truth, or the wellspring of life, or the where we came from? If it was spoken and a command was given to go, and then all of a sudden we are. It's interesting. Do you realize on our devices that every single device nowadays wants to try to use your voice assistant to try to help you out? So we're using voice command. Has anybody ever seen the movie Star Trek? Any of the Star Trek movies? And my favorite is Star Trek 4, where they have this probe that's coming to Earth to look for the whales because the whales are being depleted. And the whales have a spiritual communication that is so high that somewhere out in space, they're wondering what's happening to the whales. So they need to rescue a whale, and that will reset the universe. So they do some time travel with a whale. But to rescue the whale, they had to make a enclosure on the spaceship. So Scotty goes to a manufacturer in Alameda, California, and he's got to make an enclosure for 2 humpback whales and all the water that it takes to hold that for the ship. And they're like, the guy that's there, he's like, there's no way that we could make that. And he's like, sure, it's transparent aluminum. And so, and then they're like having a little side discussion, like, are we going to ruin the space-time continuum by giving this? How do we know that this isn't the guy that invented it in the first place? But in any way, the point that I'm making is when Scotty gets to the computer, he tries to talk to the computer, and back in 1984, the computers didn't. We typed everything, right? We barely even had a mouse, and so then Scotty's like, okay, so they want him to try the mouse. So he grabs the mouse. He grabs the mouse and he's holding it up like a microphone. He's like, "Hello, computer." Nothing. And then they're like, the keyboard, try the keyboard. So then he puts his hands down on the keyboard and he starts typing. He's like, the keyboard, how quaint. And he starts typing literally 1,000 words a minute, and he's going through 3D renderings, and he's going through all the molecular and all the science and all the physics and all the math. And he's like, here you go, transparent aluminum. Would that be worth any value to you? So, and the guy that's working in the factory is just like, and so, they make this and they rescue the whale, and they, everything's restored on Earth, and then we live happily ever after until Hollywood has to come up with another disaster to save. But maybe they were trying to tell us something. that that maybe our human wilderness animal connection is sacred, and that we need that in order to function in a fullness of health or in an abundance. But um, if I give out one thing when I come to speak, is I ask questions until, and if you don't have to even ask it out loud. You could ask it in your mind, you could ask it in your meditation, you could ask it in your prayer. But if you put that energy out into the ether, and that's something that's really censored, is ether. They even take it off the periodic table of elements. I want to see a really old periodic table of elements. If somebody can find me one that has ether on it, I want to see that. That'd be really cool. So, but if we put it out there that we have a question, it's amazing. It can return back to us in minutes or seconds. Sometimes it takes a day or a week. And one question took 10 years. My question, I actually asked the Almighty, what difference does it make? And he's like, because it was such an important thing, he let it play out over 10 years. And then I'm flying over Las Vegas one day, and I'm like, I get it. If I'm in rebellion, I'm going to be in the desert, of my life. I'm going to be drying up. If I'm in obedience, I'm going to be in the abundance of my life and beautiful green trees and green grass and wonderful things happening. And so it's just a frequency. But my ego can twist that frequency in a heartbeat. Poppy's seen me have an ego trip. Lewis has seen me have an ego trip. And speaking, this isn't new for me. My largest audience before this tour was 50 people. I'm so sensitive. My name's Andrew Charles Lee Vance. You probably have never heard of my name. Why? Because the big tech companies realized on day one, oh, he's too hot for and then people are like, anybody in here that's, it's like, oh, this is taking way too long. Anybody ready for this to be over? This struggle that we're going through? Come on. Really? Everybody's quiet all of a sudden? I'd talk to you one-on-one, you'd all be saying, hey, I'm done with this. I'm ready for this to be over. So, okay. From my military perspective, now I've not spent time on a ship, but let's say you were going to try to turn around an aircraft carrier. How long would it take to turn around an aircraft carrier that's like 1,000 feet long, that's got a couple dozen airplanes on it that are on the deck, and then there's 5,000 people that live on it? You can't just spin that thing on a dime. It's got to come around. From my mission background of traveling on short-term mission trips, is this about the person that's been awake for 20 years ago? Because I've had friends 20, 15, 10, 5. I didn't wake up. I've had bumps in the road, but I didn't wake up until 2020. There are more people that have not woken up yet. So there are people that have taken bribes and they're caught on the wrong side of truth. There are people that have committed crimes and they're on the wrong side of truth. So somebody that has a chance, I mean, that time's nearly passed, or it may have already passed if you ask Ivan Reichland. But the moment, so there will be a time where time's up for the bad guys. And guess what? There is no opportunity at that point for them to get honest or to confess or to give an affidavit, So have some mercy and compassion on the people that they're facing an opportunity to confess. So normally I start with a prayer. I'm going to end with a prayer. I'm going to hand the microphone back to Poppy. So Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us to this place. Thank you for all the miracles that you've performed to get us here this far. We are victorious in all things. We are going to expand our faith in all ways, that we are going to stand on the truth. We're going to stand in the gap. We're going to give a voice to those that don't have a voice, that we're going to live without fear, and we are going to set aside our ego. We're going to go and talk to our neighbors and say, hey, how are you doing? What can I do for you? Let me know if you need anything. We're going to go to people that that don't look like us, and we might not have anything that we think is a common ground, but we will find out that there is something that we can connect on. There is something of interest that we can have a relationship on. Lord, heal our nation. Help us to find the right math. Help us to cut through the deception, that by your word, that is our sword to advance through all darkness and deception. And we give you all the glory and honor and praise. Thank you for this moment to magnify the wonderful things that we're about to see. In the mighty, powerful name of Christ Jesus.
Woo, Andrew. All right, we're done with this. Get this thing out of the way. All right, So as we begin to bring this thing in for landing, I want to pose to you, because it's not about us. You know, we're running around talking to different people. I'm trying to learn as well. So I want to know, you know, what is going on with you all? What's happening here in Wyoming? If I know that some people said they're from Colorado, but what just quickly shout out, one or two issues that you're finding here in the local area that we might be able to address, hash out, talk, in a discussion type of fashion, to help you guys out here. Because like I said, it's not about us. It's all about y'all and what you're doing here and how we can support you. Right. That's what, and I'll go through this, the freedom and action stuff, which is huge. But if there's, what are some of the things that you're facing here that she had mentioned, some of the apathy that people aren't, don't want to step up. What's going on here in Wyoming? The land. She's saying the Wyoming is being sold to foreign entities' land. So yes, some of it's working, that but it's still